Welcome to the Fresh Business Thinking podcast with me, Finlay Kerr. This is a Fresh Thinking episode. And the topic today is the future of news. And I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by a panel of experts to discuss that. Adam Morris, Director of Shorthand PR. Hi, Adam.
Yeah.
I've got Shane Herath, Founder and CEO of London Inc.
Great to be here, Finlay. Thank you.
Hi, Shane. And Sanket Mali, Founder and CEO of the Viewpod.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Sanket. Guys, I really appreciate you coming on. And I'll ask you in turn what your thoughts are on the future of news. And obviously it's a pretty big topic, but hopefully fairly topical as well, in these times that we've seen some massive changes. But Sanket, I'm using the app and I love it. But if I understand it, is news as audio bites.
Yeah.
But it also allows you to share your views as a user. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about it in your own words.
Yeah, sure. So the Viewport is a concept where you can express your views, your opinions, and it centers around the current events. So nowadays, everybody is following the news, so everybody's aware of what's happening around them. Basically, the smartphone has made us everybody a reporter. So if you go to Twitter, anybody can say, oh, this is what is happening, this is what I think, all is good. But what happens is we have found there is a gap or an opportunity where people can still express themselves better. So if you go through all these news or all your Twitters and TikToks, you can just send your message through text. There's no way that you can express your emotions. So that is one aspect we are handling through the Viewpod. So on the Viewpod, we'll give short audio news so that people are aware of what's happening. They can listen to the quick news. It's a small news summary of around half a minute to 1 minute. You get updated on what's happening. And we have an intuitive voice recording feature wherein you can record your audio views. So you can basically express yourself better. Then the second aspect that we are trying to address is the podcasting features. So if you see the current podcasting platforms, you need certain technical knowledge or have to have some kind of knowledge around sound and changing it or some kind of technology around it. But what we will be doing in our next release, which will be within 6 to 8 months from now, we will be giving simple podcasting tools so that any user can create an audio content for himself. So we are basically aspiring to be the YouTube of audio.
Wow, the YouTube of audio,
Yeah.
big aspirations, but quite right for you, because to me it sounds like you are almost creating a new category. So really exciting. But
yeah, it is.
Maybe Adam, maybe a little bit alarming. Sanket says that everybody can be a reporter now, and obviously as a former journalist, press officer, now running your own PR agency. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it sounds exciting, and there's definitely a huge gap in the market. As Sanket said, we live in a world where anyone can do anything now, and broadcast it to the world. I guess there would be. I memean, maybe there's an answer to this, but as somebody that's trained in journalism, it's a very difficult trade to learn. You can learn it through college, university. But you actually learn for years on the job how to communicate. Would there be sort of legal checks and so on? So say, for instance, there's a break in court case and somebody turns up at the court with their camera or indeed their phone and blurts out something that would be in contempt of court or something defamatory. Would you have checks? Would there be a sort of editorial process? Or is it like YouTube where anyone can sort of upload anything and then it's up to the consumer to decide whether or not they accept that as a legitimate piece of news?
Yeah, so to start with, we have a mechanism where you can report any content that you find offensive or inappropriate. So you could email to us. But going forward, when we have more resources, we will be putting some AI in place where we can find out what audio is inappropriate, or certain kind of words, or certain kind of content that is not proper. It could be flagged immediately, and then that release could be stopped, or the user will not be able to post it itself. So we will have some structure in place where we can block certain contents.
And presumably over time, the vision is that the better someone was at this, the more listeners they would have, and the better a reputation they would gain. So you would almost be, it would eventually sort itself out. So if you looked and somebody had filed X number of reports which was listened to X thousands or millions of people, you sort of know that it's going to be of good quality. Is that the idea?
Yes, that's how it will work. So if content from a certain user is constantly being flagged, we could blacklist him or her. And if there are contents where people appreciate what is coming through from that user, then we will obviously boost that post or that user so that it has better coverage and he gets better coverage as well.
And the way I understand it as well, Sanket, is that it's kind of a hybrid just now in the first instance, in that there's professionally created news, and that's curated for you. You know, because Adam, don't get us wrong, we respect your trade and your training, and I think you make a good point. Technology is great, but all of a sudden everyone thinks that they're you know, a professional photographer or videographer or whatever it is, and those trades still have to be respected. Now, Shane, I know that you are you know, living and breathing technology, but your standpoint is that we should be considering the sustainability issues maybe more alongside the technological advances. Is it fair to say?
I certainly take that viewpoint, and I think Sanket sort of touched on that as well when he sort of touched upon, and when the point that Adam brought up with regards to the governance side of things, and so looking at it more from the lens of you know, social, environmental, and also sort of governance side of things as well is really important. So it's broad, right? And we need to kind of take into consideration how environmental sustainability can play a part of that as well. So looking at it from those broader perspectives of social, you know, environmental, and people and governance side of things is really important as well. And ethics would play a part in that as well. I think that was the point that Adam was alluding to as well, and the governance framework around that, and finding the balance in the process.
Yeah, no, those are absolutely valid points. And so I know that you have got an ecosystem through London Inc., and you like to support technology entrepreneurs. And do you think we could be doing more of that in the UK?
Definitely. I mean, we advocate a more sustainable and responsible form of entrepreneurship. So we link sustainable innovation to responsible entrepreneurship. And in that regard, not just building products or creating business models that are profitable. You can be both profitable as well as do it right from a more broader kind of context as well. So being relevant with regards to how it addresses some of the wider kind of issues as well, and still be profitable. So we advocate people to be profitable. It ought to be commercially successful as well. Otherwise, you run out of gas, and then you can't make that change happen. So it's all about finding the balance and going about it the right way. So that's what we are about. And we work with a number of tech founders. We give them a voice, a presence, and also helping some of those sustainable innovators to come to the fore. Some of these tech founders, they weren't thinking sustainability inherently, but that's where we've come in and helping shape them in such a manner that we can push that agenda forward and help them be successful as well in the process. So it's been an exciting journey thus far, and we are beginning to make some change happen in the process.
Good, great work. Adam, maybe coming back to this main theme, but picking up on a couple of things that Shane says there about supporting entrepreneurs, looking for new business models that are at the same time sustainable. Does the changing technology actually offer as many opportunities for the news? And I'm using that in quite a broad sense. Does it maybe offer opportunities for young entrepreneurs, for example?
Yes, what the newspaper or the news industry generally has done very badly is move with the times. I mean, if you think how newspapers adjusted to the internet, their answer was to take their product, which they sold, and put it up online for free. And they didn't just do it for months. They've done that some of them still do it. And it hasn't worked, obviously, because the industry's in decline. And I think there's a handful of publications which have made a success of the subscription model. The Times have, but it's taken them a long time to turn that into anything. So they need to buck up their ideas, and something needs to happen now. I mean, publishers all over the world are scratching their head wondering, how do we make money out of journalism anymore when people expect it for nothing? So everyone should be looking for that next thing. And I think what Sanket is working on sounds like it could have that potential, just to drive more of an audience, to somehow find a way to turn that into revenue, which at the end of the day pays for the people who are producing the work. Because presumably you could, if you were a journalist for a main newspaper, you could actually be part of Sanket's project, much in the way as journalists are on Twitter and share their stories on Twitter, because they could use that as a driver for their own reputation and their own publication, I guess. So something needs to happen, and quickly, otherwise these publications are going to go out of business, and there'll be nothing to replace them.
That's if I may jump in, I mean, that was a very valid point that Adam brought up, and that resonates really well with me. I mean, what I saw was that there's a sense of inclusivity in that business model, where you're including everyone in the business model, and that's, I think, is very relevant right now, and there's a movement for it as well, and people, it's something that relates quite well with the public right now, with the challenges that we faced, the world faced, and the pandemic, and the whole sort of shift that we've seen has increased that sort of consciousness around some of these things. And also I see quite a lot of diversity in that as well, and giving everyone a voice, almost sort of like democratizing that entire space. So it's a very novel approach in that regard.
Thank you.
So Sanket,
as you were discussing, so we could
Mm-hmm. So, sorry, on you go. I think you've picked up on some of those points that were maybe the drivers behind your idea. Maybe you could tell us about that.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that you were talking about, like sustainability, or even in the pandemic, some mental health issues and all those things. So there is one aspect that we could address through the Viewport. We have been in touch, or we were talking to some of the therapists who have all this audio content, or they talk to people on the phone and all those things. So that we could make available for free for anybody to hear on our platform. And there is an interest from such therapists to get their content on board. So this is one aspect we are exploring as well.
That's good. I mean, and that's the sort of modern thinking that we need, isn't it, just now, to say, well, okay, this is what I've got, and I can share it using technology to benefit everyone.
Yeah.
And so what I was getting at was, that seed of an idea, and it often starts, doesn't it? YouTube, came from an idea. Yeah. So what was it? What triggered you to say? Did you see an opportunity or something that needed changed? And what was the driver?
Yeah. So the first thing is, many times us friends were discussing a lot of stuff, and the one thing constantly came up was we are not able to exactly say what we want to say. So again, I'm going back to the text version. So on Twitter, I have to write something. So if I write, I'm not happy, it doesn't give me the sounds or doesn't give me the emotions. And so that's one thing we were trying to address. Another thing is I use that in my pitch as well. So we were watching a football match and it was muted in the pub. So we could just see the screen, we could never hear the sound. So it wasn't giving us any effect. But if you hear it with the sounds, there are emotions to it. So that's where it clicked. And we said, yeah, there is something. And then people, they have YouTube. So there's a YouTube for everybody to express themselves. But not everybody is confident coming on a video and talking about something. So we wanted to have a specialized platform. And in the current status, the podcasts are getting popular. So the popularity of podcasts is increasing. And the other aspects that we are targeting is the short version of the audio content. So nowadays, yes, especially young people, they don't have patience as such. So they listen to something, watch something, and then just swipe or go on to the next thing. So we want to cover the message or the content in short audio so that you just listen to it and go to the next one. So people get the good experience.
That's quite an interesting point, because you say people aren't confident, always confident on video.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't confident writing text either. I mean, if you go, even just go to anyone's Facebook page, there's a lot of people, they don't punctuate very well. They don't. They're just not good writing communicators.
True.
But turn that into a voice, and it can suddenly be really, really effective.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what we are trying to get out of people.
And without using lots of emojis or exclamation marks, it's that emotion that comes through in the voice as well. So, you know, I think there's lots of great elements to it. If I can come back just quickly, Sanket, to something you said there about the differences in age groups, possibly, and you know, not wanting to sound too much like an old man. You know, you've identified some differences there. Do you think that the Viewpod will have a younger audience, like, you know, mass generalization that TikTok is for a younger age group, or do you think there's different pockets of different age groups that could benefit?
Yeah, I think it is beneficial to everyone because what our vision is to get content in a varied kind of or a variety of content. So it should be applicable to any age group. But you're right, to start with, it will be mostly the young population because they are more hooked on to technology. They will try more new things. So as we go on to the older generations, they will take up or adopt any technology once it is popular or somebody is asking them to use it. But by that time, we would like to have content which is appropriate to that age group as well. So to start with, we will be mostly concentrating on young audience, young professionals, and then work our way up through the content.
Okay, that makes sense. And Shane, that brings me back to something that you said earlier about it being quite democratic, that you could see how, you know, this could be open to all, possibly. Now, I know mass generalization, but have you seen maybe in other technological advances or other businesses within your ecosystem where maybe an older demographic, for example, is benefiting that maybe once wasn't?
Well, with regards to how technology is changing some of these aspects and also sort of sharing of control as well, because it was sort of kind of pushed down, if you like, the kind of the traditional model of you know, that operated whereby here we are seeing a movement where it's been sort of a bit more leveled in that approach, and with the right governance in place, that the point that Adam brought up, it could you know, take a very interesting form. And I like the idea in that regard, where that responsibility is shared, and then finding the balance with regards to that business model, and adding value and a new dimension as to how we relate to news, how we consume news, and that change is quite novel, quite different, quite innovative, I found. And we see that, you know, in other examples. I mean, for example, very interesting project done by London School of Economics in terms of their work on journalism. They formed this journalism AI collab, and IJO project it's called, and using AI, for example, to spot gender biases. So this AI engine goes through different content, looks at some of the text or imagery, and then picks or spots where certain sort of gender bias that could exist. So to kind of find that kind of, so it's sort of like you could think of it as creating of a check and a balance, if you like, using or leveraging AI to find that balance. So there are a lot of interesting sort of activities happening. BBC is doing some work on certain areas. You could also see the speech text kind of stuff that's happening, and people using more of artificial intelligence, immersive tech as well, using AI. So and smart glasses, the whole landscape's changing. So a lot of advances around that, but with all of these things, it's about finding the balance as well, and getting it to connect with the audiences, and from a governance as well as the other kind of broader areas, it ought to be balanced as well. For example, diversity and inclusivity, and doing these things in a much more responsible sort of manner is I guess is the key consideration, or should be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how technological you are yourself, Adam, but Shane's come back a couple of times to this phrase of balance, and that's sometimes within a business, within the business model, and in terms of sustainability, and that's key, isn't it, in presenting news? Because I sense that behind every opportunity with artificial intelligence, there's potential pitfall as well, isn't there?
Exactly.
Sorry, Adam,
I mean, sorry.
That was to you, Adam. Sorry.
The comment there.
Sorry. Did you get that? Okay. Do you want me to go back over that?
Sorry, if you could just go over it, the end bit again. Sorry, I just cut it at the wrong moment.
Yeah, I mean, it was really just for your views on the potential, the pitfalls, because Shane nicely put some of the a lovely case study using artificial intelligence, but there's potential issues behind that as well, aren't there?
Yeah, I think that all those issues that Shane mentioned are important. I still think the best way to achieve balance and that sort of thing is through trained human being employees checking articles. An article gets written or a piece gets published, it then gets checked by someone else, and then preferably someone else again. A three-stage editorial process, which was always the case with newspapers. What we're seeing now with online journalism is somebody will write up a story. It might not get checked by anyone else before it gets thrown up online, and that causes a lot of problems. So maybe AI has a role to play, but I do think that ideally it's human beings you need to check for quality and things like that.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that, but I think you right up top, you kind of presented the commercial problems that traditional newspapers have faced. So I guess that's been a reaction, isn't it, to try and do it quickly and with on
Yes.
low cost. But you also made an interesting point, picking up on the Viewpod and how it could work. And I was fascinated by this because it could become almost a hybrid between traditional news. So you have a journalist who creates the piece, but then it also almost becomes phone-in radio, because you've got an engagement with whoever originally created the piece and their community who may be engaged or maybe even polarized. So I guess, Sanket, you would maybe quite like that if you found that people build a bit of a community around their own content, and then hopefully a grown-up discussion ensues.
Yeah, of course. So one of the areas that I always talk up when this point comes up is football. So football is one thing that everybody's interested in, and everybody will have his view. So yeah, wherever people have their interests, they could have the community, they could have their followers kind of things, and they can discuss with them around their interests. So it could be anything, like I gave an example of football. It could be technology, it could be food, it could be anything. So you just put your content out saying, this is what I like, this is what I do, and this is my view, and people can come back and start discussing with you. So it's kind of an interaction between your community and yourself. So that's how the platform should be used going forward as well.
You know, that's exciting, and I can imagine some of these organizations or groups, fan groups, tribes, call them what you will, that would be really interesting. I don't know if I'd be brave enough. I think I'll probably stick with politics and religion rather than getting into football, not knowing everyone's persuasion here, if that's all right. Listen, this has been a great conversation. I think it maybe gives us the opportunity to develop some other ideas, maybe come back and hear on your progress, or invite Adam and Shane to give us some other insights later on. But you know, good luck. I understand that you're going to be launching soon. Tell us, where could we find the Viewpod app?
Yeah, so the app is currently available on Apple and Google. So on both Play Store and the App Store, you could find it if you search for The Viewpod, and you can download it. It's very easy to install, 2 quick steps, and you can start listening to the content on there. We are officially launching on the 30th, so there will be some kind of event around that date, but the app is now available on the stores.
So this is perfect. 30th of March, it'll be in the usual app stores. Thanks to you, Sanket, for sharing that. A lovely case study. And again, we wish you all the best. Adam,
thank you, Finlay. Thanks for this. And thank you, Adam and Shane.
Adam, Shane, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your views with us. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.